Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that are located in the upper left-hand corner that say Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that particular chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also, from that same page, download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that, before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Drag-On Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd greatly appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you through an email, we'll address it on the Internet show, and then, as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. The other option is to join us live if you're available from 11 a.m. till noon Central Time, 5 days a week. We do our best to hold court here, and you can join us through Zoom. If you go to zoom.us and enter in the meeting ID number 853-2357-4173. That's the meeting ID for the first hour of Mind Shifters Radio. 853-2357-4173. Once there, if you join through phone, it'll be automatically muted, and you can toggle in and out of mute by hitting *6 on your phone. Or if you open up a web browser, you're free to share your video or your audio or neither, and just listen in or just type in the chat room. If you have a question or a comment, an answer or a testimonial, any kind of an offering. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that is just loads easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. So, what's on your mind? What is resonating with you or not resonating with you. I have an offering this morning from Laura McKowen, who has written on her Substack a piece that touched me, and I know it's touched at least one, if not several other people I work with. And it's titled The Ones Who Can't See You. And it was posted yesterday at 10:12 a.m. on Substack. And I don't know if you can read this for free, but for a small fee to follow her, get access to it or whatever. But I'm going to read it today. It's she's just a really good writer. She's a very bright person who has made the determination to turn her suffering into solutions for herself and others. As a refresher, Laura McKowen is an adult woman in recovery. Her first book came out, I believe, in 2020. She just started promoting it when the coronavirus restrictions kicked in. And that book was titled, We Are the Luckiest. And as a branch off of that, because of the coronavirus restrictions and people shutting down and closing off AA meetings and things, she decided to hold some meetings for people seeking to maintain their sobriety and heal and be in community, and didn't want them to just be AA meetings, so she just infused the meetings with what she'd learned in writing her book and the 9 premises that are at the beginning of the book, which formed the basis of her second book, which title will come to me. And so she's a gifted writer and a very bright woman who has struggled with addiction to alcohol and is now being a gift to many by her pursuit of radical honesty, fundamentally radical honesty. And she continues to support the online community called the Luckiest Club, which is still going strong. And if you have any interest in tapping into that, you can find her online, Laura McKowen, the Luckiest Club, etc. So here's the reading. This is the reading titled The Ones Who Can't See You. And Laura McKowen writes, Many years ago, a friend texted me a photo of her teenage daughter performing on stage for the first time. I knew all the work it had taken her to get her there. The guitar she'd bought years before when she saw her daughter was serious about learning, the lessons, the hundreds of hours of practice, the countless iterations of lyrics and songs, the late nights, the shows, and all the emotional cliff diving that comes from allowing your kid to dream big and hope for something that may never come to pass. I replied with all the exclamation points and claps and fire emojis, and then I asked my friend if she was going to send it to her daughter's dad. Their relationship and arrangement were different than mine. However, as a divorced mom, I knew there were some moments that only the other parent can truly appreciate. My daughter's dad and I had been trading such texts for years. However, my friend replied, no. It would be wasted on him. He wouldn't know what he was looking at. Her reply struck me hard, not because I didn't understand what she meant. Of course I did. But because I was sure my response would be different. I knew I would still try to make that bid for connection between my daughter and her father, even knowing it wouldn't be received. Perhaps especially knowing that. A tremor of adrenaline rippled through me, the familiar ache. And our conversation moved on, but I filed it away. My reaction wasn't just about my ex-husband, with whom I gratefully had and still have, a good relationship. He would have understood that moment, because he would have equally been a part of the process of getting our daughter there. I had never, as it were, had to do that particular bid and rejection dance with him. More importantly, our daughter doesn't have to do it. He sees her. Not perfectly, of course, but no one can. But the intention is there. He shows up and always has. He is curious about who she is. Loving her is the priority, and she doesn't have to do anything to earn that. It just is. What a gift to us both. No, the guy I was talking about was the proverbial one. The one who took on so many faces and bodies over the years, each different, sort of, but essentially the same. The same essential way that they would or could not see me. The same in the essential way that would, unbeknownst to either one of us, if I'm being generous to them, it would unconsciously animate me into trying to complete a story until it was too late and I was already underwater. She includes a poem here that she wrote in 2016 titled Necessary Fools. The ones who couldn't see you, who laughed inside your heart and let your tenderness fall to the floor. They were blind. They were cruel. They were necessary fools. And all this time, every time, they were wrong. Necessary fools. From 2016. She goes on in this writing for today. At the time I had that conversation with my friend, I was already aware, in more than just a general sense, of my dad's impact on my relationships with men. I wouldn't say I had it all sorted out and healed, but I was well on my way. I had had a big reckoning with him when my daughter was born that had shattered my long-held illusion of who he was, and that was followed by a couple of years of not talking, which had done wonders for me. Getting sober had brought even more clarity, more learning, and more therapy. At that point, I had established a mostly workable rhythm of communication and depth of intimacy, in parentheses she writes, very little, close parentheses. I had established that level of connection with him. I had come to accept who he was and who he wasn't. It wasn't great, but I was okay. And I thought the awareness, information, and healing I'd done were enough. And I thought that all I needed now was some practice. That was almost 10 years ago. How much I knew then, yes, but how little I understood, really understood, the power of that biology, the depth of the imprints, how unconscious it all really is, how difficult to unlearn. I remember feeling, even as a kid, maybe 10 or 11 years old, that my dad wasn't really talking with me when we were talking, but that I was just an audience. My brother and I would later joke about being, quote, sermoned to, close quotes, during car rides. But it wasn't quirky or cute in reality. My dad would say things to me about, well, you're smarter than your brother, or you're a hard worker like me, or you're very disciplined. At the time, it felt like flattery, like being seen, like actual oxygen in my lungs, until I got older and realized he wasn't talking about me at all. He was talking about himself. He was talking about who he wanted to be. And I, as his child, was simply the cleanest mirror he could gaze into. I shone nothing back to him but love. As Maggie Smith said in her memoir titled, "You Could Make This Place Beautiful," she wrote, quote, "There's a term for this, and I'm not using it here," close quotes. A recent encounter had me stepping into the same dance, shocked and humbled that it could still happen so easily. The strength of the pull, the conflation of excitement and fear, the stickiness of it all. As I struggled to pull myself out, which to my credit happened blessedly quickly, I was talking to my friend Jim and remembered my friend's text from that day. Quote, "I'm wasted on him," close quotes, is what I said. It was a little revelation. Quote, "He doesn't know what he's looking at," close quotes. And my friend Jim replied, looking at me very, very hard and speaking very softly, "He doesn't even know what he's looking at, Laura. He doesn't know who you are. He can't see you for who you are." And it was the recent him he was talking about. All of them. Any of them. So many people simply cannot see us. Not even because they don't want to, though they may not, but it's also because they can't. They just don't have the eyes for it. We don't register in their field of vision. It has been the work of my life not to take this personally. It has been the deeper work of my life to forgive myself for trying to complete the story so many times. I am learning. Laura McKowen, from her Substack yesterday morning. For all of those who can't see you as you truly are, for all of those of us who keep striving to be seen by people who don't have the eyes to see us. So that's my my first offering for the day. And while if you have the finances and you want to follow Laura on Substack, feel free. If you find you can't find that writing and you'd like it, I can copy and paste it to you. I'm certain she wouldn't object. I'm looking forward to her book on relationships and healing relationships because I have delighted in her first two books and so much of her other work. So comments, questions, anybody here chasing after approval of somebody that just can't give it or won't give it? Something is niggling at my brain about something else I wanted to share this morning, and it's not coming to mind right now. So if nobody else raises a hand, I will move back to reading from the book by Guy Finley titled One Love, One Life, One Journey.
I'll chat. In listening, thank you for that. I came in a little late, so I didn't hear it all. And I wonder if it's really comes down to wanting our own approval.
Well, essentially, when you think about human beings and how we understand the level at which brain neurons are developing and creating connections when we're an infant and a toddler. It's off the charts compared to what it is today. So if you consider that in that space of 6 or 8 or 9 years, whatever it is for the individual, when their literal physiology is bursting to overflowing, it's literally so intense and expansive that when that time in our lives ends, there's a tremendous house cleaning where neurons are dying off, right? If they haven't been engaged, if they're not, they like atrophy and fall away from disuse. Well, if you think about it, that during that period of time, because everything is so wide open in the perceptual field and energetically and emotionally, we have the capacity to download into us from our parents this strong core sense of self and being, this consistency. In different psychiatric and psychological writings, they've called it object constancy and a sense of self and all this good stuff that you can get from your parents when you're really young. The difficulty is that door shuts. And if you didn't get it from your parents, if your parents weren't able to give you that loving consistency, that solid sense of self, which, by the way, they would have to have at least in part in themselves to give you, and if they don't do it before that window closes at 7, 8, 9, whatever the age is, then you cannot get it from the outside. You can always develop it from within yourself. You can give it to yourself. You as the adult, you as the observer from the spiritual sense and the seat of the soul, you can comfort the younger wounded parts of you. You can start to nurture that inherent spirit, unless it's been completely eliminated through extreme abuse. So, when you ask, isn't it that we want it from ourselves? Maybe we don't want it from ourselves, but we need to have it within us. It needs to be an internalized comprehension, understanding, felt sense of self and value, so that we are not chasing around after everybody else looking for the light or the gem that's already hidden inside of us. So that's what I would say in response to your question.
That fits. And so if I heard you correctly, that means, when the window in my journey from 7, that's what I was trying to say last night, with like Alexander knows it inherently, his value and his worth, because that is marinated in that. And in my case, the window was...
So help me understand, you're using the word Alexander?
Yeah, my son.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm talking about Alexander. I'm just doing comparison to my journey and his, and how he perceives the world now at 19, to even still how sometimes I've been perceiving the world. So I can see there is an inherent worth that's known in that being in my son. There's just a knowing of that, where in my case, I've been striving to find it.
Okay, hold on just a minute.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, just for your own clarity, as you're thinking about this.
Yeah.
To change the way you're talking about this, so you acknowledge and give conscious acknowledgement to the fact that you don't really know what's going on inside your son or anybody else.
Can I interrupt, Tim, just a second? Can you let Carrie in? She just tried to reach me and said are you able to let her in? No, can't?
Well, I would be happy to, but she's not on the board.
Oh, okay.
Maybe listen, as you're going to communicate with her, Susan, please suggest she might have she might be trying a support group.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. No worries.
Okay.
So, Susan, my thought was that if you just add a word or two to what you're saying to acknowledge that in truth, we really don't know what's going on inside another person. So how would that look? Well, my mind is serving up thoughts like, my son seems to behave in ways that indicate he feels loved. He feels his core self-strength.
So I just want to ask a question around that, because we have an intimacy between him and I. I ask the deeper questions and he responds. So I take what he responds in words as that's what's going on the inside of him.
Yes, absolutely good, absolutely true. And I want you to just trust.
Okay.
You might know with a certainty, like we all know the sun is there. You might know this about him, right?
You're leading me somewhere. I can feel it. I don't.
Well, it's just the same. It's the same thing of you strike me in our interactions as, and we've talked about it.
Yeah.
It came up again even last night where you say, well, Dr. Tim, what you do with people is you always do this and you hold this space and so I'm trying to soften you away from that.
Yes, it's true.
It isn't that I always do, right?
I didn't say always, but
I know, but it's the implication is there, right? So I'm just trying to say it's that same kind of level of thing that I'm trying to say, take a look at how it might be over here, because there are going to be times with your son where he doesn't feel so solid in his core, if he's like the rest of us human beings. And if you're over here with this, but he always did, what happened? Then there's going to be a shock to your system. Whereas if you just, part of that may or may not be true for you, but part of that, when I see this in other people, when I see it in myself, is that there's a process of me putting myself down and the other up. It's that pedestal or pit business we've talked about so often. And this is just a little bit of a flavor of that.
Thank you for pointing that out. Now, I will be definitely aware, so I will reframe it. It seems as though my son...
He acts in ways that indicate that he's
acting
core.
in a way that indicates that he is... I want to find the word for it. And I want to find this for myself. So if I recognize it in another, then I can also claim it in self. Does that make sense?
If you recognize it in another, you can claim it in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That may be true for you.
Okay. So because I guess where I'm trying to go with that, because I'm finally getting language, because I can see it out there. If I can see it out there, it must be in here. That's where I'm going. So,
or the seeds of it are in there, right?
Yeah.
Or the potential for it to be developed in you is in there.
That's it. That's exactly. So the fact that before I didn't even notice any of that stuff. I didn't even notice someone being rooted in worth.
Exactly.
And the fact that my 9-bit mind is finally starting to notice that in other. And I love that you're helping me see, yes, there's a behavior, but it's not always that. And we go through cycles of ups and downs. Or not even ups and downs. We go through cycles of having it and then perception of not having it. So by being able to give it language for me, then, it's framework for me. And so I guess that's what I'm just developing that. It's actually being built. The template is being built in my own 9-bit mind. If that even makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And the thing that my mind wants to serve up here is the idea that this is just a process. This is
yes.
Right, this is a journey. This is the journey without any distance, right, to a place you never left.
Never left on a journey without distance.
And so that's what this is. This is just at any given moment, I might feel good about myself or I might not. I might be able to operate from that true sense of loving well-being, and I might not.
I'm just getting there. Like it's finally, before I wasn't even, if you looked at it rising to a bench or a level, I wasn't even there to even consider that. Now I can value myself. It's coming, which is exciting. Yeah. So I'm just building framework, that's all.
Yeah, and the idea that I'm there, right? Even if and we're bound by language, so there's some tricks to it, but when I say I'm there, I want to remind myself for now.
Yeah.
I'm there now.
Yes.
Right? Half an hour from now, when somebody, the internet show's over and somebody texts me and says, you really screwed that up by not answering this, and I may not be there in that moment, right? I may not be, I might have it within me someplace over here, but I might be responding from a wounded part over here. And so it's just this willingness to be in the moment of observation without all the certainty, right? Without all of the efforted certainty.
Yeah.
Because most of my efforted certainty, things that I have to work hard to be certain about, they're all just made up. And they're all just a defense against something that if I was willing to look at that something more directly, openly, it would lose its power over me. Yeah. But when I look at it with this contrived, rationalized certainty, now I'm in a struggle with it. And I'm trying to prove that I'm right and it's not. And this is all happening inside me and my sense of self-worth or woundedness or value or whatever.
Yeah. And you know what, right now, so even as I'm sitting here, this is just, it's all unfurling. Like it was like a big knot in there, and having to, me right against everything, and the mind, it's just unraveling right now. So it's exciting, very exciting. And yet meeting myself in every moment with it. So thank you for all your observations and what you notice. I appreciate that very much.
Well, you're entirely welcome and deserving. The way we talk about it with people, just with words pointing at this, is that we all end up with influences from both sides of our family and both bloodlines that go back generations. And we all have certain things we're pretty good at and other things that we're mediocre at and some things we're just not really good at. And some of us have had experiences that we've, as Michael Singer would say, that we've downloaded and held on to because we're not okay with them. And, if you want to understand that sentence better, listen to some of Michael Singer's. Why would I be holding on to something that I'm not okay with? Well, every time you have a regret, every time you have a bitterness, every time you have a resentment or a vengeance thought, that's what you're doing. You're going back and revisiting a memory and enlivening it, pouring mind energy into it. It's already in the past. It doesn't have any more impact on you than you create with your mind energy about it. Mm-hmm. And so every time we have a bitterness or a hurt or a resentment or an anger about something that happened in the past, we're holding on to something that we don't like. We're keeping it in us. We're pouring our mind energy into or banging the gong to resonate that energy of discomfort, anger, hurt, whatever. And we don't need to keep doing that.
Well, it even goes to what you were reading earlier then with, even wanting to be seen by another, like what Laura was saying, those that can't see us, right?
Exactly.
And there we are beating our heads against the wall, wanting that because it's
trying to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get them to see us or trying to get them to make the noises or the behaviors that would let us feel like they see us.
I know. I definitely have that going on.
Even if there's a part somewhere in us that knows full well they are not seeing us or they won't ever be able to see us, there's another part of us that can be active that's like a little puppy dog nipping at their heels, trying to lick their face and get them to acknowledge that we're there and that we're worthy. And all that can be happening inside the person, and the other person that we're trying to work with is completely clueless that any of it's going on. Not always. Sometimes they are, and they're using it to, assuage or distract themselves from their own inner pain, fear, or sadness. But the fact of the matter is, if the eyes to see and the ears to hear aren't there, if the capacity for that kind of intimate connection doesn't exist in the other person, there's nothing we can do to make it happen.
So if everything outside of us is a mirror of our own, I believe, and I don't know if this, for me, this is true, that everybody outside of me is a reflector of my own state of consciousness. And if I have that character in my field who doesn't see me, and I have this yearning for them to see me, if I clean up my own mind, I assume that will shift then. Either it's no longer going to be a thing, or they will see me.
First one.
Okay.
Right? It's not about them.
Yeah.
You're not going to change and start loving yourself and start radiating out love, and all of a sudden that's going to change them. They have their decisions to make. What happens is, it's like what Guy Finley says when he's talking about one of the lines from the reading in the, I don't know, James, the Gospel of whoever, where the Beatitudes are. Somewhere in that, Matthew, I believe it is, somewhere in that Sermon on the Mount, he talks about how seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these good things shall be added unto you, or something very similar like that, is a biblical quote from that Matthew Gospel that was attributed to Yeshua or Jesus. And Guy Finley says, if you go back into the Greek and Aramaic and pick those words apart and find their original meanings, he says, that saying really has nothing to do with acquiring anything. He says a better way to summarize that from the original words would be, if you love above all things the rule of divine life, right? The intelligence that gave rise to all of this. If you want to honor and respect that above all things, and you honor and respect its completely equitable or balanced character, then all these desires and cravings and things you think you need shall be placed in a passive position within you. So, to apply that to this situation, when you wake up and realize that every negative thought you have about yourself not being lovable or not being good enough or whatever is false, and you feel the resonance of that, it won't matter to you who sees you or doesn't see you.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's some reading that I've been doing with the Alan Watts lately where he's talking about, as you move on your spiritual path, all the disruptions it makes. And one of them is where he's talking he says, it begins with, it gets lonely here. When you proceed on your spiritual path, when you start putting up healthy resistance to people who want to abuse you or whatever it is, they want to connect with you in a way that isn't nurturing or supportive for you, and you step away from those things, it starts to feel really lonely. And then you start to feel like, wow, I can really see how wounded that person is, etc. And how I'm glad I'm not that. But eventually, if you just keep going on your spiritual path, what you get to the realization that, oh, wait a minute, we're all the same. And I don't need to shield myself from that person as much. And I can sit here in this gap of the lack of intimacy, and maybe even in the face of their negativity, and just be that loving presence and understand with compassion and with, the gratitude for life itself that they're okay just as they are and I'm okay just as I am. So you can move to the place where even though the people you craved to have a connection with throughout your life never make it there to the ability to connect with you, you're okay with that reality, that actuality. So,
That's
it's just like what Michael Singer says so often in his talks and his podcast is, can you be okay? Can you just be okay with whatever happens? Not that you necessarily like it, but you can be okay with it. And not even being okay with it was his last talk we were listening to last night in the support group. He says, And understand that being okay with it doesn't mean you don't do anything about it. It just means you don't do something about it from the angry, hurt energy, from the wounded perspective, right? You do something about it from the wide open, from that ancient Aramaic definition of faith, which is acting from the rooted center of your being.
Mm-hmm.
So first going inside and reminding yourself about your true nature, getting a felt sense of it, and then letting that give rise to your action.
Thank you so much.
You're entirely welcome and deserving. We had some text messages get dropped in here, and Susan Bingham, me too, what? Carrie Lee, I am so there. Where? We'll extend the invitation for you to clarify your comments in the chat room.
Resonating with the discussion. That's my input. Carrie, go ahead.
I've been on that journey of seeing in the other, as a mirror for many, many years. And now I'm so at peace with that. And I feel that my relationship is, I have released my needs to be seen and heard and all of those things. And what happens is that in those moments of perhaps some dysfunctional behavior, I have no issues with it. I'm just like, oh, by the way, I'm speaking to you or whatever. And no longer do I have the drama of the reactions and the hysteria and I'm just at peace with that. And it's gotten rid of a lot of drama between us as well, because now when I say that, or I say, when you're ready to talk to me in a nice tone of voice, we'll have this conversation again, and I get up and leave, and no attached emotion, just, okay, we'll do this later. And then we do, and it has the effect too of just making him more conscious and aware. And I went through a long period of feeling lonely, and I don't feel lonely anymore. I feel grounded and connected in a way to source that I haven't before, and I feel like I've reached out to my community more in the last 6 or 8 months, this last year, to be with people who are on the journey, so that I just feel like I'm in such a different place with it all. And I know I came to see you a couple of years ago, Tim, about that, and it's just completely shifted as I've seen my responsibility in all of it and my reactions and all of that. And it's just, I'm just in such a great place with my relationship, and that person hasn't changed. Thank you very much for being there for me.
Saying that to a mirror right now?
Yes.
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 Yes, and you're entirely welcome and deserving. Yeah, so Carrie, you missed the reading by Laura McKowen that I started this show with today.
I did, yes.
It's from Substack, and it's titled The Ones Who Can't See You. And essentially, it's just a beautifully written piece about how a friend of hers was talking about her daughter at some kind of a music recital. And Laura responded with all kinds of excitement and said, "Oh, it's great. Are you going to share it with her dad?" And her friend said, "No, he wouldn't understand it. He wouldn't get it. He hasn't been a part of her life that way, etc." And this triggered Laura to realize how she had that pattern with her dad, and for decades she struggled to get his approval, and she'd made some success but she duplicated or replicated that pattern countless times in her life with other people and men, and she's awakening to how much work it's been for her to make progress on this and how much progress she's made. So that's what the article was about.
And that's a beautiful thing. And I had a similar experience with my mom when she said to me years and years ago, she's now passed on, "Oh, I never understood you, Carrie." And as I sat with that, I had this huge realization, oh my God, she doesn't need to understand me. I don't need her to understand me. I just need to love her. And that was a huge shift for me and in my constant striving to please her. I get it. Yeah. Power person dynamics, like Michael says, run the whole show.
And the other thing about that, from Michael's work, is the idea of honor thy father and thy mother. And a lot of people who've had a really difficult time with their parents get very agitated when they hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael says, that's that ancient wisdom that says because you've got this energetic and biological connection and all of the cressive bonds, the connections that get made through the day-to-day making a lunch and brushing teeth and getting a bath and cleaning a house, those day-to-day activities build this connection. So the craving for that from certain people is so much stronger, the certain people here being the primary caretakers and or the biological parents. So instead of trying to pretend that nothing difficult happened between me and my parents, if I had abusive parents, this commandment that says honor thy father and thy mother is talking about going into that place within you where you carry the solid part of you, the awareness of your true nature as love, and initiating a behavior toward your parents from that loving place, rather than playing the game by their rules, which might have been, downright abusive. And instead of aligning with somebody who's angry and bitter and accusatory towards you, you stay home, so to speak, in your awareness of your true nature as love, and you act in a loving way from that space toward them, which doesn't mean you go grovel at their feet or, buy them a new car. Or it just means anything you do that you do from that space of connectedness, of your awareness of your true nature as love. Because you're the one who gets the benefit of that. There's another line from the Course in Miracles that talks about exclude no one from your love. No one. Not the most horrific person or a person who's done the most horrific behavior you've ever seen. Don't exclude that person even from the extension of your love. Because if you do, you'll be hiding a place inside you that needs that love to heal. Exclude your love from no one. Because if you do, you'll be hiding a wounded place within yourself and keeping it from healing. So along with recommending both of her books, We Are the Luckiest and Push Off From Here, and probably her new book, which is probably going to be coming out in a few months, about healing relationship wounds or trauma.
Did you put that in the chat, Tim?
Did I what?
Put that in the chat.
Put her what name, in the chat?
Her name and the books, please. Thank you.
So if you just search for Laura McKowen in her books and on Substack, then you'll have everything we've talked about today. And also, if you're interested, there are 2 interviews that she's allowed me to do with her that are available on the On Your Mind podcast at onyourmindpodcast.org or journeystream.org/podcast. And it is, I've gotten quite a few expressions of gratitude from people just for essentially turning them on to her work. So hopefully that'll have the same resonance with people in the call today. So we have a little bit of time for questions or comments. I had another thing I was going to share today, which just flew completely out of my mind. So I don't think there's time to get in and read another segment of Guy Finley's book. So I won't. I'll save that for later in the day or later in the week. One of his stories, one of Guy Finley's stories from the past, was about the young man who woke up and realized he was in a kingdom where he was required to show up every day and work for the king. And the story goes on. It's quite lengthy about how it wasn't a really bad master to work for, but the young man just kept questioning, well, why am I here? And so he started asking out loud, and eventually the master heard him ask. Well, and he said, well, because that's your place. That's what your parents have done and your grandparents have done, and that's just the way it is. And for a while that satisfied the young man, but he had this growing dissatisfaction, and he started to creep out at night and sneak off into town in the library and break in. And he felt like he needed to do that because he wanted to research freedom, and he didn't think people would take too kindly of him reading a whole bunch of books about freedom. So eventually he decided to go back and ask again, only this time he was much more animated in his asking. And as he got more animated, the master, who always seemed above the fray and had guards all around all the time and seemed, completely safe, and the master got irritated and showed his true nature and started shouting him down. Eventually, and this is quite a long story from Guy Finley, but eventually the young man didn't back down. And he said, but why? And the master said, it's the law. And the aspirant, the young man, heard himself say with quaking, and you might imagine that he had soiled himself. He was so nervous to say this because the king's guards were there and their shields were clanging. But the young man said to the master, I am the new law. He had awakened to realize that he had the authority within himself to make his own decisions, to choose what he was going to do or not do. Now, Guy Finley makes it very clear at the end of that. He says, listen, it's not going to go well if you decide to walk around saying under your breath, I am the new law, I am the new law, I am the new law. He's not talking about it that way. He's not talking about you asserting power or authority over anybody else. This is all an interior story that's about awakening to the free will that's been given to you and the power of your mind energy and where you choose to focus it. All right, so someone has a hand up. Is that Celinda?
Yes, it is. I just had a thought to share to with this wonderful conversation going on. It's really helping. I mentioned in the support group about how I have pretty much put my focus on process rather than progress, and that's for me and my self-perception and reality and stuff like that. But I often call it walking the way, and I love that because that gives me the breadth to get out of comparison and the living the comparative life being the bitter life, which it very much is for me. And it also allows me just to know that side by side with my wounded self that's still in need of healing, there is this other self, which is the I am self that I am as soul, as part of the whole, as connected to all it is. So I'm practicing connection, and I'm practicing having a relationship with that part of me and that all the other parts of me that I want to connect with in a healthy and meaningful way, which would be from love. I also realized as you were talking that it's an and/or for me. If I am trying to get another to understand me because I'm needy, I also try to understand the other because I'm needy, and it's all an inside job, like you're saying. So thank you very much for this conversation. It's just, we're just lifting each other up by our bootstraps. How sweet it is.
All right, well, I will echo that. Thank you for your comments, and I'll just remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false.